This is the Dog Savant Podcast with your host, Brett Endies.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to talk about place training. Before that, I just wanted to remind you to please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. I always forget to talk about this. We also have a video version of the podcast, so you're going to get to see what you're hearing right now. If let's say you're listening on iTunes or some other kind of audio, subscription, device or whatever they call it, app. So on YouTube, you can go on my YouTube channel. Jordan, do you know the name of my YouTube channel? Is it the Dog Savant? I think so. And if it's not that, you can go on my website, dogtrainingla.com or thedogsavant.com. Go to any of my videos, click on that, and you'll go right to my YouTube channel. I'm also on Vimeo as well. I believe that's at the Dog Savant as well. Social media, same. And as far as my life, just some quick news. I'm going to be shooting for my show next week. Wish me luck. And as far as for you, the listener, thank you so much. If anyone, even if it's one of you listening at this point, I appreciate it. And I would love for you to send in your dog training questions, comments, ideas, tips, ways I can improve this. Even for Jordan, who's great at his job, let me know how we can improve the audio and video content as well. I want to give you this. I want you to use the information here, not just for entertainment, but also to help your dogs, to help you to have a better relationship and to resolve their behavior problems, of course, and just listen better. So place training. I do a lot of it, and I used to not do it. I always tell people the story of when I was a young dog trainer, I apprenticed, and I had, a lot of work with dogs, prior to saying I wanted to now learn how to train them for a living. But I watched a lot of VHS tapes, and one of them was some Tom Rose training tapes, and he was at the time to me, an older trainer, more experienced, who I think is up in Wisconsin, and he made all these tapes about training. And one of them was like, he'd take it was like a log, and he'd make the dogs go up there. And of course, at the time, I was more sensitive, and I was like, why is he making these dogs struggle? But what I learned is that dogs learn through association and through a very clear, well-defined boundary or place, if you will. So what he was doing is actually it challenged their mind and their physical ability. So it was actually good for some of these dogs that needed more of a job, more of that kind of definition when they're being told what to do in terms of commands. So that was like where I was first introduced to it, but I couldn't put two and two together. I mean, I didn't realize that a lot of the everyday around the house stuff directly caused some of the issues we see, and not just home-based issues like separation anxiety, social issues, just generalized anxiety, and then like overreactive greetings and just agendas that dogs don't need to have when at home, but also out on walks and just in the presence of owners, which we'll talk about a little more when we get into, the whole logistics of place training. But I would just kind of focus more on the actual behavior. Your dog jumps on people. Well, let's just kind of, either get the dog to do something before they're going to jump when the guests come, or redirect it or correct it, right? I didn't realize that was just one of areas where maybe they weren't jumping, but they were still getting too caught up on transitions and new events coming and going. So I always talk about the flow of life where people just moving around the house, going, from one room to the next, getting up from the couch to go to the bathroom or the kitchen. For some dogs, can be too big an event. And if we don't direct those transitions, sometimes it leads to this greater response that creates the issues we see, that impulsivity where it's not convenient. But we have to see where we don't mind or aren't paying attention to it almost equally as the times where it is creating an issue, which then we can kind of, again, be more preventative. But then at least when we train the dog through that, it makes more sense because we're being thorough in the whole kind of agenda redirecting to get them their needs, to get them what they need from A to B. You'll see the place can even be relocated to get them where they want to be at times, but more on your command. So it just slows down that flow of life. So it took some time. Social media helped, interacting with other trainers, kind of made me realize that it wasn't just for, I always thought place was more for like service dog training out in public. You do it out, for obedience where they go up onto a platform and all that, or agility. But, probably, I'd say at least a decade ago, I realized the value of using place training. At the very least, when you start a training program, protocol with an owner and their dog, especially if the dog has some bad habits formed of, I say, zipping around the house too independently. So we have to get our arms around that, at least for the initial part of the process of addressing some of the other issues, especially like separation anxiety, even walking too exuberantly. You need a place to get them to kind of create this focused state before we segue into the walk. You can't just get up and go put the leash on. They're already over anticipated, and they, like I always talk about the mental rubber band, they're too many steps ahead. I talked about in the walking podcast. Was that episode 2, the walking podcast? Yeah, you can talk, Jordan. It's okay.
Yeah, episode 2.
His beautiful voice. This is Jordan. Twinkle in the eye. So he's going to edit that one out. So what we want to do is give the dog a job. I say the place is kind of like your house, right? We're in the home environment. This is the office. There's employees and there's people at different levels of commitment when they're in the office. So the company owner, managers overseeing everything, they kind of take on more, right? From whatever their experience, they've worked longer at the company. So they may be more suited because they know all the moving parts, where a new employee may just be able to go to their desk and be good at their job, but they're good at their job. They can't take it all on. They're not experienced yet enough, or maybe that's not what they're going to do ultimately. Nonetheless, it's sort of like a tier system. And dogs, for some of them, will at times, not out of fault or purpose, but just out of a very strong agenda and reaction to stimuli, will just kind of end up feeling that they're watching us more than we're watching them, even when we're just doing our everyday activities and transitions, like I said before. So you end up with a dog that is just in their mind like, what's next? What's next? Always waiting for something. And they're kind of clinging to us. You find like these dogs, just like they'll be sleeping, you make a move or get up to do something, and they go from 0 to 100. And yeah, it's like, oh, they just want to follow us. And dogs, of course, like to be near us, and they kind of drift with us at times. But when it's impulsive, when it carries over to the other things like greeting issues or walking issues or separation anxiety, we got to get our arms around this and have the dog a little more structured. It doesn't mean having them always be away from us. That's even why I don't always like using a kennel, which you can use, for like separation anxiety, you can use that in conjunction with place training, even when you're home, or for a puppy, you have to use a crate for potty training. But, like your dog can just learn, hey, if you want to go from this place next to me while we're hanging out in the one room, I'll let's go or heel you to the next space and then place you there. So it's like you're waiting for your next command, not for that next need to react to my movement like I'm unconscious to the need to keep the office in order, because they just want to feel that we're monitoring that order. You want to call it the pack, or just that dog wanting a job in our presence. That some dogs just require more than others, and it's not always their breed. It's just how they're wired, their personal histories, and the type of relationship they have with the owner. This also creates some boundaries. You don't have to like push a dog off of you if they have a problem jumping up on the couch. You show them when we enter a room where you tend to kind of jump or cling or get too pushy, you're going to go to your place, which can be kind of near me, but it's at arm's length. You're going to lay there, and the command gives it context. That's why it's like, I'm running the office. I have the obligation to tell you your job, and that's why training has to be focus built. So you can't just lay down and get up in a second. It's like lay there and practice focusing longer so you can just decompress instead of cling and react, and then I'll give you attention. So there's your conditioning component where they get the reward for that calmer mindset. You can even give them a treat. But they have to realize that there's this awareness on our part that it's hard, because for a few weeks at least you're going to have your dog on a leash. You got home from work, you're tired, all wild, clinging to me. Let's go to your place for 5 minutes and calm down. Now I'll give you attention. And again, you should work on this not just when you first come home. Practice, build the muscles, make these commands stronger, even so they listen better in the real world, but even just for practical, function where they can have a redirect to get what they're trying to cling to too strongly, which gives them the impression that they're on the case. And it's really what definition of anxiety is, the over-anticipation of future life events, and that's what humans can struggle with as well. Dogs just do it in a more physical way. If I think about something I have to do later, usually I'm not going to just pull my body to it unconsciously. Dogs, they don't have that convenience. So we have to kind of change their mind or thinking, their energy state at times where they are getting too caught up in transitions and clinging or getting pulled towards life. That's why I told you in the other episode, that's why they pull. They see themselves too ahead and they overproject, which is very useful if there's a hunting situation or they're, something different than just everyday life where it should be more go with the flow, unless it's a directed, excited type of activity like play or, whatever you're doing that's a little more elective, but not when you're just going from one room to the next. Too impulsive for some dogs, and it leads to the other issues. Hope that makes sense, because that's something that I don't find is always addressed enough as far as using that place training integrated into home life to address the root cause of a lot of these, behavioral issues that dogs, struggle with. And it's like by doing it, a lot of owners report to me, it just fixes itself. That's what's cool. So try it. I have also in my, in our series on Facebook, we're going to have, I'm sure, plenty of place training being spoken about. But I do have some episodes where I talk about that as well in my web series, which is also on my YouTube channel. So what do we do to teach the dog place? We have to get a good basis of a command. So your dog should know, the concept of sit, the concept of down. And to teach place is pretty basic. It's like how you teach a come command or any kind of trick. It is lure and reward training. Always put a leash on your dog to start teaching them, because it creates a consistency. You can lead them in a certain way. I always recommend a collar or a training collar versus a harness, simply because harnesses will promote more pulling and resistance, and you're not able to steer your dog as efficiently and actually end up creating a much looser leash if you teach your dog to focus on a command. If they do struggle with that, even if it's just leading them room to room for now, it's a good way to even make the walking in a structured way more familiar. That'll only improve your out and about walks as well. So you want to start close. Dogs have to learn and build, their ability to respond and hold their attention till the job or the command is completed the task. So what you'll do is you'll tell your dog place, have a leash on them, and you'll lead them. Get a treat that they like. So it's going to be like the breadcrumb trail idea where they lead to the place. And as soon as they hit the center of the pad, you tell them good, you give them a treat. The timing's most important, and of course the consistency. So if every time they hear the word place, they get excited to move to that very well-defined spot, and they go right in the middle and they get a treat, quickly will their brain make that pathway, that place means go there, and you'll see you'll be able to do it from even further away, even when they're distracted. Now, we want to go a step further, because they can't just stand there with no means. We have to teach them what to do once they get there. And again, it's like, okay, employee dog, go to your cubicle. You're going to go have a job to do, but go there first. Now do this job, and I want you to focus on that job, and I'll tell you when it's the next job to do or when we take a break. So that's where you do the command. So now you're going to engage your dog in a sit or a down. And same thing, as soon as they go to the place, to the center of it, and they sit or down, then you give them the treat for doing it, and you reward them. Now the real work is where they have to hold it. So now you don't have to say stay. Their mind can hold that association of maintaining that position and that idea of sit or down, holding it in that one spot until you give them a cue to release. And by them getting up and being brought back till they finish the job, they will learn how to actually be able to do it on their own without being shown and without a leash, of course. And then what you do with the treats is you increasingly give it to them as they improve or do it from further, or they hold the command longer with more going on, especially when you're getting up and leaving the room and coming back. And that's curbing some of that cling, that agenda, that getting caught up in transitions I was talking about earlier. So that's where the place is very beneficial to use, not only to build better focusing commands, but also just to offset a lot of the causes of anxiety and why dogs tend to get caught up in more exuberant transitions like greetings, or things where they're just overanticipate, even meal times. This will help with that, having them lay in their place and be calm before that too. So try that. It's amazing how a dog starts actually going to the place on their own and just chilling out without even giving them a command, because they learn, hey, when I'm laying there, I get my needs met quicker instead of following things. And more than that, my instincts are telling me, like, that's way easier. I'm just kind of feeling more calm. And then it's like they wait till it's time to get summoned. And it's just much more of that patience, and we're dealing with the next events that we share in life. And that's just removing anxiety. For us, it's harder, but for dogs, they can really achieve that. Now, where can place be beneficial out in the real world for like obedience training needs? Because I do want to touch on that. I'm a problem behavior guy, so I talk a lot more about like how to resolve. I'm a Mr. Fix-It dog trainer, but I do want to talk about how to resolve, how to teach a dog better focus even out in the world. So you can even use, not even just like a specific place. They surely make great training cots. Coranda Bed makes good ones. Coolaroo makes them. There's a whole lot of other companies. We'll have our own cots coming out soon. And they're good to use outside. They're waterproof, reasonably portable. And what you can do is you can start teaching your dog how to hold a position. I recommend a long leash or doing it in the controlled area so that if they do get off the place, you can bring them back and start building distance, time duration, working around distractions, and then you can jump off into like recall, command training, things like that. Also, what the place is going to be good for is like if you want to teach your dog how to hold a position, like at go to a coffee shop or a public location where you don't have to bring a big cot, but you can even bring like a little mat, or you can just find one spot. And that's what I was going to touch on too. You don't have to use a bed. You can just kind of, put like a marker or kind of make a note or draw a little line in the dirt of where your dog goes back. You use like a plastic thing on the ground, whatever it may be. But your dog can learn by association by relocating where they were originally established in terms of the command till you release them or segue into a different command. And that's, whether it's we're here at the coffee shop, you're going to lay in this one spot for 20, 30 minutes. And if you get up, I'll just keep bringing you back. And it's not punishment. Everyone thinks you're not correcting them. You're just bringing them back and building through duration and stretching. So you're not going to do 20, 30 minutes the first time. And if your dog can't do it in the living room, you're going to do that first, build the muscles, and then you're going to practice more at the Starbucks. And that's going to develop. And if you do it, even with an older dog that's learned some impulse control issues, it's still good for them. It even helps them socially filter the presence of other dogs or people. It's really a good skill to do social, like a public access training with them. So that's a good thing to do, but you have to kind of start in an easier, less distracting environment first. So that, and then again, you can use it to build because dogs usually hold better. That's the old Tom Rose school thing that I had learned but didn't realize I was learning many years ago. It's dogs can learn by committing to a very clear physical, visual boundary, and even if they don't hold to it, by being brought back to it, they make a clear association. If you do it with a consistent in a consistent way, you reward the right times, you follow through, with the right timing. Dogs are smart, especially ones that do have the potential to unravel in life. They're thinkers. They really want that direction. They actually thrive on it. So that's that. Let's see. As far as anything else to talk about, so I think again, I have videos. We're going to talk about place training so much more. We'll do other podcasts about this. We'll do Q&As. That's why I would love if you just submit your questions. Do video questions. Send me videos of your dogs, problems. Or you talking about your problems. Email, social media, whatever. I'll definitely go through them on the air. We're new here. So we haven't really gotten to that yet. So I think we're going to just start developing listeners. Once the show comes out, I'm hoping to get a whole base of listeners, hopefully everyone positive and everyone looking to improve their relationship with their dog. And I think that's it. Is there anything else we should be talking about, Jordan? I always ask Jordan for advice. What do you think, Jordan?
I think it's a great episode.
You could cover the bases on this one?
We'll definitely
Thank you.
link to the episode 2.
Yeah, we'll link because I have the also on my the YouTube channel. We have a visual of kind of what I'm describing here too. So anyway, thank you so much, and train, love, and enjoy your dogs.